Astrology versus Buddhism. Who really holds the power over your life? When the Buddha gave a discourse on what it means to have an auspicious day, he did something very striking. He mentioned death. As he said, an auspicious day is when you don't go chasing after the past or hankering after the future, and you clearly see what's arising right there in the moment. Then you do your duty with regard to that, because who knows? Tomorrow, death may come. The fact that he mentioned death in conjunction with an auspicious day went against the customs of his times, which believed that even the mention of death was inauspicious. But the mere mention of the word death doesn't make anything inauspicious. In fact, if you're heedful, which is what the Buddha was trying to encourage, that's auspicious, because all skillful qualities come from heedfulness. It's not that we're innately good or innately bad. We have good characteristics and bad characteristics in the mind, good habits and bad habits. We develop the good ones because we realize that if we don't, we're in danger. This means that our future is auspicious because of things we do, things we decide. To think in this way is putting the power in our hands, and that's very typical of the Buddha's teachings. I've been reading recently about how some modern Dhamma teachers don't like the idea of karma. They say it's laying blame on people for the sufferings they meet with in life. But the Buddha was never interested in laying blame. He was more interested in analyzing a problem and seeing what you were doing to cause the problem, so that you could stop doing that and actually solve the problem. The purpose of his analysis is to show how you're responsible for things so that you can be responsible for the solution. If you think you're not responsible for the cause, you try to throw things off on other people, and nothing gets accomplished. That's the ordinary nature of the world. It's always been that way. People blaming other people for their problems. The blame gets thrown around, and the problems never get solved. But here we are, watching what arises in the present moment because we can do something about it. That's what the Buddha means when he says, you do your duty. The duties here, of course, are the duties of the Four Noble Truths. The first is to comprehend suffering. When you find the cause, you abandon the cause. You do that by developing the path. And in developing the path, you get to the most important duty, which is to realize the cessation of suffering. There's a definite program here. These are the Buddha's shoulds, his oughts. And it's not that he made them up and tried to impose them on other people. He found through his own practice that this is what you've got to do if you want to bring suffering to an end. That's really auspicious. The idea that putting an end to suffering is possible. But it requires facing some unpleasant things. One is the suffering itself. You can't run away from it. And two, you have to recognize the extent to which it's coming out of the mind. This is why the Buddha chose the word origination. Throughout the canon, he uses this word primarily to talk about things caused by factors coming from within the mind. His analysis, of course, points us right here. The craving that causes suffering is not somebody else's craving. It's your own craving. I know of one Dhamma teacher who objects to this, saying that actually craving comes from suffering, and then he leaves it right there. Craving is natural because suffering is natural. He doesn't explain where suffering comes from, but what purpose does that solve, and what problem does it help to solve? If you think of suffering as simply something you have to accept, then there'd be nothing wrong with the craving. You'd have to accept the craving as well, and there would be no duties. There would be no need to abandon it. And you'd wonder, well, why talk about this at all? Now, it's often true that suffering can lead to craving, but the Buddha says the most useful way to approach their relationship is to start with a craving that develops under the influence of ignorance. That's something you can end with knowledge. So we meditate to bring some knowledge to the process. Why does this happen? How does it happen? We can trace it back to feeling, contact, the six senses, and then the things that happen before contact at the six senses: name and form, fabrication, ignorance. All these things are happening inside. This system of analysis may sound kind of abstract. And when things are laid out in a line like this, it sounds impersonal. But the Buddha wants you to develop this impersonal perspective on things that are actually very personal right now, because we tend to be very attached to the personal things that are causing suffering. That's the whole analysis. We're attached to our ideas, to our perceptions, to the way we pay attention to things, and to the intentions we have. We're attached to the body. We take these things for granted. And the Buddha's asking us to get a little distance from them so that we can see them clearly. He says that it's when you see these things as separate, that your awareness is one thing and these things are something else, then you really see them. You can pull back from them. At that point, the question is not who's to blame. It's simply that this is how the process happens. And it's the same in everybody's heart, so nobody's to blame per se. It's more a question of, do you want to keep on suffering? If you don't, you can do something about it by looking inside and looking inside in the right way, so that we can cut the process at its causes. This is what we're here for, focusing on the breath so that we can bring some knowledge to the present moment, because the breath is our anchor in the present. And it turns out that is one of the forms of fabrication that, if you do it in ignorance, is going to lead to suffering. So focus right here. That's your entry into all of this. Breathe in a way that feels really good, so that you have alternative ways of dealing with the different kinds of fabrication, the different manifestations of what the Buddha calls name and form. You're developing a new relationship inside. That's where the problem is, and that's where the solution is as well. So keep watching right here. At first, you may not see all that much, just the mind slipping off either into distracting thoughts or into sleepiness. But you can't let that get you discouraged, because there's no other way out. You've got to learn how to develop a foundation here. This is going to require some ingenuity, so that you can get around these ways in which the mind likes to block things off. After all, part of it doesn't want to solve the problem. It likes the way it's been doing things. It's okay with the way it's been doing things. But you've got to remind yourself that the deeper part of you realizes this is not okay. This world we're in, it's a huge mess. There are times when it seems nice, and everybody likes the idea of interconnectedness. Then it shows its real side, what they celebrate it as interbeing, but it's really inter-eating. I mentioned that in an article one time. The editors of the journal in which the article was to appear really objected. They said, "This sentence has to go." I said, "Why?" They said, "It's confusing." Well, what's confusing about that? It's 3 words. But it went against what they were trying to celebrate. If you just go on being okay with the way things are, those things will definitely turn out to be not okay. And then you're lost. The very things you were celebrating turn on you, which is why the Buddha said, you want to be heedful so that you can develop the right attitude toward what's going on, and particularly the right attitude toward what's going on in the mind. There are parts of the mind that like to block off what's going on inside, and you've got to figure out, how can I build up the strength so that I can see these things? That's a lot of what the complaints about the Dhamma are all about. It exposes things that people would rather keep hidden. It points out the drawbacks to things that they would like to depend on. So it's up to us to decide whose side we're on. Are we on the side of the people who criticize the Dhamma? Or are we on the Buddha's side? Do we sympathize with what he did and what that can do for us? It is a matter of allegiance. So we deal with this fact that the mind is divided against itself. But we try to strengthen the skillful side. The heedful side that realizes what's really auspicious in life is when you get your act together and you realize you don't have that much time, even if you live to 100. It's not a very long time. And it's not as if, at the very end, you've gathered up all those years. They've passed away and they've taken things away with them. All you have left at that point is what you've mastered inside. That's something you can build up, and it doesn't have to wear away with time. Which is why, when you're heedful, you want to follow the path. Do your duty every day, as the Buddha said, every day with every moment, because that is within your power. This is the recurring theme in the Buddha's teachings. Other teachers put power someplace else. They said it was in the stars. The Ajvakas, who taught determinism, were really avid astrologers, but as the Buddha said, they taught powerlessness. The Jains taught karma, but they taught that everything you experience comes from past karma. As the Buddha said, that teaches powerlessness too. If everything comes from a creator God, again, you're powerless. But with the Four Noble Truths and their duties, the Buddha's putting the power in your hands. So show some appreciation for that fact and use it well. In the present. The verse we chanted just now, an auspicious day, is one of the few places in the canon where the Buddha talks about being in the present moment. Don't go longing after the past. Don't go placing your expectations on the future, he says. But when he talks about the present, it's not just being in the present or accepting the present as it is, without any judgment. He says, 1. You clearly see what's happening, particularly in the mind. That's where you want to focus. And then 2, you do your duty with regard to what's coming up in the mind. So there's something you actually do. And when the Buddha talks about being in the present, it's always in the context of heedfulness. If you don't do your duties now, you don't know how much longer you'll have the opportunity to do them. But if you can do your duties now, you can find happiness surviving on the present, i.e., on the good things you've developed right here. The duties here, of course, come from the Four Noble Truths. If you see that there's any suffering in the mind, you want to comprehend it. If you comprehend it to the point where you can see what's causing it, then you want to abandon the cause so that ultimately you can realize cessation. And you do all of this by developing the path. All the good qualities that need to be developed, which includes abandoning the things that need to be abandoned. So there are choices to make here. You're not just hanging out in the present moment to enjoy it or accept it. You're realizing that the present moment has consequences. It leads to the future, and you have those duties to keep in mind. That gives you a reference back to the past, so it's not just pure present awareness. There are states of concentration where things get narrowed down to a very precise time in the present moment, but you've got to maintain the concentration. It doesn't maintain itself, so even there's a duty. Mind is not in concentration. You've got to figure out, what do I need to do? What are my duties right now? Here at the monastery, things are pretty simple. You don't have too many conflicting duties. We're all here for training the mind. There's work we have to do, but the work periods are not overwhelming. We don't have to multitask too much. All we have to do is focus on what we're doing right now, what we should be doing right now. This ties in with another passage where the Buddha says to remind yourself, days and nights fly past, fly past. What am I becoming right now? You become, of course, through your actions. So what are you becoming by the way you act? What kind of person are you turning into by the habits you're following? And is that the direction you want to go? This too points to the fact that the present moment is not an isolated moment. It builds on the past and it flows into the future. You focus on the present because you have a choice. You can continue flowing in the way you're going, or if you don't think it's wise, you can change the direction of the flow. The Buddha gives a sense of urgency to being in the present by reminding you, do your duty now, because who knows? Tomorrow may not come. Tomorrow may be death for you. In other words, you're in the present moment because you're heedful, not because you want to enjoy how nice the present moment is, or to squeeze what little bit of pleasure you can out of it. You're here because your choices have consequences, and you've got this opportunity right now to make good choices that have good consequences. So what should you be doing right now? At the moment, you're focusing on the breath. If the mind slips off, you bring it right back. That involves the 3 qualities that the Buddha said need to be brought to the establishing of mindfulness. There is a popular belief that mindfulness simply means being in the present moment, but the Buddha never said that. Mindfulness is a quality of memory. You remember certain things. In this case, you remember your duties, and they're good duties. The duties assigned by the 4 noble truths are there for the sake of your own true happiness. They're not arbitrarily imposed by somebody out there who just wants to push you around. They're taught by the Buddha because he saw that these are the most valuable things that human beings need to know, the most valuable duties they need to follow. So you keep your duties in mind, and then you bring in the second quality, alertness. You're alert to what you're doing and what the consequences are right now. After all, sometimes the consequences don't wait until tomorrow or next week or your next life. They appear right now. If you spit into the wind, it comes right back at you. If you put your hand into a fire, you can burn it right now. So you're alert to look at what you're doing and to see what consequences you can detect right now. Sometimes nothing seems to be happening, and that's when you have to fall back on your memory to encourage you to stay and to remember that this practice takes time. The mind has been jumping around all day. You sit down, and it's going to want to continue jumping because that's its habit. This is where you have to bring in the 3rd quality, ardency. If the mind jumps away, you just drop whatever it was following, and you find yourself back with the breath. And you try to stay here with sensitivity. The effort to be sensitive is also a function of ardency. This is where the pleasure in the present moment comes in, as you try to stay with whatever pleasant sensations in the body you create through the way you breathe, through the way you perceive your breath. Think of the breath coming in and out through all the pores. It can flow anywhere in the body. So wherever there's a sense of tightness or blockage, hold in mind the perception that allows your mind to believe, okay, the breath can go through the blockage, no matter how solid your bones or the pains or any other solid-seeming parts may seem. There's a lot of space inside the atoms of the bones, so you can think of the breath flowing through that space to create a sense of ease, fullness, refreshment throughout the body. The present moment is not a wonderful moment on its own. It's a good place to stay because you've learned how to make it that way with mindfulness alertness, and ardency. You remember what to do with the breath. You've learned to remember to be alert to what you're doing with the breath. And you've learned how to be ardent in doing it well. At other times, when you're not meditating, there may be other chores you have to do. There are times when you do have to think about and plan for the future. Times when you have to remember specific things that happened in the past. So you're not totally abandoning the past and future as you practice. But when you're sitting here doing concentration, you want your attention to be more and more totally right here, but still with that sense of mindfulness, of holding the right things in mind. If you lose your mindfulness, the concentration drifts into what Ajahn Lee calls delusion concentration, where you lose sense of where you're focused, where you are in time and space. When you come out, you wonder, what was that? Was I awake? Was I asleep? You're quiet and still, but there's no mindfulness, very little alertness, and no real ardency at all. Now, ardency doesn't mean that you have to sweat and strain. In fact, if you do a lot of sweating and straining, it's not going to be pleasant to be here. Ardency means that you're on top of things, what you're doing right now, what you should be doing right now. Are you doing what you should be doing? If not, what can you do to get the mind to want to do it? So the establishing of mindfulness is very intimately related to the duties of the Four Noble Truths. That quality of ardency is what carries out those duties. Mindfulness keeps those duties in mind. Ahn Mun, toward the end of his life, when he was talking about his teaching style, commented that there were some things that he didn't reveal to everybody. He was very quiet about his psychic powers. We can now read about them in books and magazines everywhere, but when he was alive, he very rarely talked about them. He would mention them to students who were having similar experiences in their meditation, and the lesson was meant for them to apply the next time they met up with that kind of problem. But the teachings he said that he taught with an open hand to everybody were two. One, the Four Noble Truths, and two, the four establishings of mindfulness. Those go together. The Four Noble Truths have their duties, and establishing mindfulness means using your powers of mindfulness to remember those duties and to carry them through as you stay here with the breath, as you maintain this awareness of the present moment. There's no conflict between the two teachings. They're intimately related. We always have to keep that point in mind. Mindfulness isn't a state where you're not doing any duties. We're not here just to hang out in the present and enjoy the present moment and think that that's all there is. The breath here is part of the path described in the Four Noble Truths. Your concentration centered in the breath and mindful of the breath is part of that path. It's going to take you someplace if you keep at it. So try to keep these points in mind, that we're here to figure out what's our duty right now. Think, what duty needs to be done? I'll do it today. I'll do it right now, because who knows? I may not have this chance tomorrow, or even a few moments from now. If we die, it takes a long time to get back to the practice. Think how long it took you in this lifetime to find your way to sitting right here, learning how to train the mind. If you're not careful, the next time around, maybe a lot longer than that. So you've got this opportunity right now. Focus on the right now, because it's a place where the practice is done, and where you can make a difference. That is what it means to be with the present, to see it clearly, and once you see clearly what's going on, to realize what your duties are right now. Then you do them. That's when being in the present moment is really auspicious.